My name is Joseph Moore. I was an inspector for the Northern Lighthouse Board in the year 1900. I'd been working with the board for years, but nothing prepared me for what I encountered at the Flannan Isles Lighthouse. The Flannan Isles, 7 small rocky islands off the western coast of Scotland, were remote, isolated, and often shrouded in mist and silence. They had no permanent inhabitants, only seabirds, wind, and 3 lighthouse keepers stationed to maintain the vital beacon warning ships of the jagged coastline. On December 15th, the SS Arctur, a passing steamer en route to Leith, reported that the lighthouse light had not been seen. The ship's crew made a note of it, but with bad weather rolling in, they couldn't investigate. We thought little of it at first. Lights sometimes flickered out during storms. But as days passed with no communication from the keepers, concern turned to urgency. On December 26th, 11 days after the light went dark, I was ordered to go to the island myself with a small team to inspect the station and check on the men. That journey across the sea was brutal. High swells, cold wind, the kind of trip that rattles your bones. And even before we landed, I felt something wasn't right. As we approached the island, there was no welcoming party, no flags, no signals, no movement. It was eerily quiet. The jetty was empty. The supply crane stood still. The silence didn't feel natural. It felt expectant. When we reached the lighthouse door, it was locked from the inside. That was the first true sign that something had gone wrong. We forced it open. Inside, everything looked untouched. A half-eaten meal sat on the table, stone cold. Beds were made. The oil lamps were full, as if waiting to be lit. But 2 oilskin coats were missing, used for protection from the storm and sea. The third remained hanging on its hook. That alone was strange. The weather outside was freezing. No one would step outside without one, let alone stay out long enough to vanish. As I moved through the rooms, I kept expecting to find someone, a sound, a cough, anything. But there was nothing. Then I found the logbook. The entries began routinely, weather reports, light rotations, minor equipment maintenance. But starting on December 12th, the tone changed. Keeper Thomas Marshall wrote about severe winds and an unusual storm. He described his colleague MacArthur crying, completely out of character for a man known for his toughness and temper. Marshall wrote that the men were praying. One line simply reads, "God is over all." And yet, the weather logs from nearby ships and coastal stations told a different story. There were no storms in the area those days. Conditions were calm, clear. Something wasn't adding up. We continued our inspection around the island. Down on the western landing, we found twisted metal railings and ropes scattered across the rocks. Part of the storage box had been smashed. It looked like it had been struck with great force, maybe by a rogue wave, a freak accident. The most accepted theory is this: one of the men saw danger, maybe ropes coming loose in a gust of wind, and went down to secure them. Another followed to help, and perhaps the third joined them after seeing them in trouble. Then a wave, massive, unpredictable, swept them all out to sea. But that theory doesn't answer everything. Why did one of them leave his coat behind? Why were there signs of extreme fear, prayer, crying, before anything had even happened? And if the sea was calm that day, what were they afraid of? No bodies were ever recovered, no messages left behind, just silence. Afterwards, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse was automated. No more men were stationed there. It's still operational to this day, but unmanned, just machines and the wind. To this day, I can't shake what I felt on that island. It wasn't ghosts or shadows. It was the overwhelming sense that something had gone terribly wrong. Something no report, no theory, no investigation has ever fully explained. I stood at the edge of those cliffs and felt watched, not by something supernatural, just by the weight of unanswered questions. Sometimes places remember, and sometimes they make sure you do too.